Well, Enrique's mother leaves him in Tegucigalpa, the capital, when he's just 5 years old. And like many women in Honduras, she just couldn't feed her 2 children enough. She couldn't see sending them to school past the 3rd or 4th grade. Many women in Honduras described to me that when their kids start crying with hunger at night, they fill a big glass with water and they stir in a little teaspoon of sugar, a dollop of tortilla dough to fill their bellies up with something. And so his mother, Lourdes, came to work in the United States, and he felt desperate to be with her again. He, when he was left with a paternal grandmother when he was 11 and 12 years old. On Christmas morning, he would stand at the door of his grandma's wooden shack, and he would pray to God on Christmas morning, please, I just want one thing, bring my mother back to me. And so when he was 16 years old, after 11 years of not seeing her, he set out to go find her. And really, he wanted answered one question, which all these children want answered. Does she really love me? Because she said she would come back quickly or send for me quickly, and she hasn't. And he left with little more than this little scrap of paper with his mom's phone number inked on it. When I was on the train routes in Mexico, these kids, I was amazed. They would stuff that little slip of paper in the sole of their shoe and the waistband of their jeans, wrap it in plastic so when they cross rivers, hopefully that precious number wouldn't smudge. And he's got his little slip of paper and virtually no money, so he travels the only way that he can, which is gripping onto the sides and tops of these freight trains that travel up the length of Mexico. And, the journey took him 8 attempts. Mexico deported him 7 times. We're not the only country deporting a lot of people. It took him 122 days and 12,000 miles. He faced bandits alongside the rails that tried to, they rob kids, they rape them, they kill them. There are gangsters who control the train tops. I would see on these trains, because I made the 3-month journey on top of these freight trains to reconstruct Enrique's story, I would see gangsters, 10 or 20 of them, roaming the train tops. They would go from car to car and say, your money or your life, and they'll strip you of your clothes, look for any coins they can find, and sometimes just for the heck of it, throw you down to the churning wheels below. These kids face corrupt cops, a dozen police agencies, I counted, that rob these children and rape the girls in many cases and then deport them to the southern border. And they also face the train itself, which the migrants call La Bestia, the beast, because they're crossing Mexico. Enrique was crossing illegally. He couldn't get on at the train station, so he had to get on and off these trains as they're moving. And I saw dozens, hundreds of children and others who had lost arms and legs to this freight train. So it's a testament to the determination that you hear in Jose's voice of what these children are willing to do to reach the United States. No wall is going to stop a kid as determined as I saw with Enrique. And now there's this added motivator, huge motivator, of this surging violence in Honduras, where, kids are seeing dead people on the streets every day. 1 in 10 children are not leaving their homes ever for fear of being kidnapped. And we're seeing younger children. And before, 1 in 4 children were girls. Now nearly half are girls. Before, parents didn't send for their girls because of the fear that smugglers might rape them. Now there's such desperation because the gangsters go to girls coming out of the schools and say, you're going to be my girlfriend, or I'm going to kill your whole family. And if the girls don't agree, they just grab them and rape them and put them in a plastic bag and kill them. So the violence has just gotten so much worse since Enrique made his journey and Jose made his journey. It's many, there is that draw of coming to reunify with the mother, but there's also this enormous violence that's pushing these kids out of these countries. And a lot of this is fueled by our drug use in the United States. We consume more illegal drugs than anywhere on earth. And 80% of the cocaine from Latin America is being funneled through Honduras. And so you have the cartels and the gangs vying for those routes. And that is fueling a lot of this violence in Honduras.
And the comment of some Republicans, for example, The Hill, saying some Republicans allege lax enforcement of immigration laws by the Obama administration has prompted more and more illegal immigrants to send their children, and that DACA, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, is up for renewal, prompting Republicans to link DACA to the surge of child migrants. I think it was Senator Rubio in Florida saying that the rumor is out that only children will be able to stay. So they're trying to get their children here. Sonia.
Well, you know, it's certainly true that the smugglers will use anything to pump up their business, and they are certainly telling people, you know, if we just push you into the United States, you're home free. They're lying to people, and that may be helping to generate some business for them. But Senator Rubio should know that DACA is only for people who have arrived by 2007. People after that do not qualify. And what you know, these assertions seem rather ridiculous. In terms of that, you know, the UNHCR, the United Nations, has seen a 700% increase in asylum claims just last year in neighboring countries, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Belize. So these children aren't just fleeing to the United States, they're fleeing to many countries first around them. They're trying to get out of this danger zone, these war zones. And UNHCR, in a study that was released recently, they interviewed 400 of these children, asking, why are you leaving? What are the reasons for this exodus? And 58% of them said it's because of this violence. In Honduras, nearly half of these kids had been personally affected by the violence. Someone in their family had been threatened or killed. And so only 9 of these 400 children cited the possibility of some, you know, being able to stay in the United States legally. Very few of them cited that as a motivator for coming to the United States. So I think this all kind of obfuscates the real reasons why children are coming, which is, number one, the violence, and number two, to, as usual, as has been historically the case, to reunify with a parent who left them behind.
And Sonia Nazario, how did you decide, of all of the children trying to make this very difficult journey to the U.S., to focus on Enrique's story? You've also said that as a result of your having written about him, his life is actually now in danger in Honduras and he cannot go back.
Well, I was looking for to tell the typical story of these children coming to reunify with a mother. And at the time, the average age of a child entering the United States alone and unlawfully without a parent was 15 years old. Now that's dropped, by the way, to 14 years old. And we're hearing anecdotally that it's dropped even further. 1 in 6 of these children is 12 years old or younger. So when I was on the train, I traveled with a 12-year-old boy. Conductors had seen 7-year-old children making this journey across 4 countries by themselves. I don't know if your listeners can imagine their 7-year-old crossing 4 countries, facing bandits, gangsters, and all of these people trying to hunt you down and kill you throughout Mexico. But I was trying to write about the typical story, and I met him in a shelter in Nuevo Laredo in a church, and he was on his 8th attempt to get through Mexico, and his experiences were typical of what these children face. One night he had 6 gangsters on top of the train, nearly beat him to death. They shattered his teeth. They beat his face with a wooden club, trying to steal the few coins he had on him. Stripped his clothes off, started to strangle him with his clothes. And he's on top of that train thinking, I'm going to die here, and my mother will never know what happened to me. And luckily, the train jostled violently, and he was able to get away from these gangsters and fling himself off this train. It was going 40 miles an hour, and save himself. But his experiences were typical. He was 16 when he started the journey, and he was 17 when he finally completed his journey and reached his mother in North Carolina.
Let's talk about solutions. Jose Luis Zelaya, what do you think has to happen?
I think that what needs to happen with these children is exactly what happened to me. To give them the opportunity, to reunify with their families. We are seeing through data, through statistics, through studies that these are children. These are children who are migrating to another country for no fault of their own, but because they are forced. They are being forced out by poverty, by extreme violence, and by the reality that they don't have a father figure and that their mother may be in the United States. So these children come here, and I came here, and I was given an opportunity. I was given an opportunity to reunify with my mother. I was put in the school system, and a teacher inspired me. I was told to seek education, and I did that. So I think that these children need to be treated with dignity. Number one, they need to be given basic needs, such as a place to shower, a place where they can use the restroom, a place where they can sleep in a bed. These are children who are 5, 6, 7 years old and are scared, are afraid. They are emotionally and psychologically hurt, and they may not express it because back in their own countries, if they spoke, they were beaten. If they spoke, they were hurt. So they may not be able to express what they're feeling right now, but I tell you that there's a lot of fear going on in their lives right now. I remember the first day when I went into the detention center, I could not stop crying the entire day because I thought I was going to be sent back to Honduras. I was afraid that I would be sent back to an abusive father and that once again I would be beaten. So these children, first of all, need to be seen by a psychiatrist. They need to be evaluated. They need to be given the resources of a human being. They need to be given the ability to an education. President Obama categorized this as a humanitarian crisis. We need to act. We are a strong country, and we should not be treating children the way we are treating them. So we need to give them the same opportunities.
Sonia Nazario, the solution to what should happen with these, what is the number of these children you believe right now? Thousands?
Well, we're talking about 90,000 children arriving and being placed in federal custody this year, 100, 130, even estimates of 147,000 next year. So the numbers will keep spiraling upwards as we see this violence grow in Central America.
And what should happen with them?
I think, as was mentioned earlier, we need to first and foremost deal with these children as children and protect them and view them as children and treat them with dignity. But I think, we need to address the root causes of what's causing these children to flee. Until we do that, the numbers will keep going up. Our approach to undocumented immigration, unlawful migration, has been, I think the solutions by the left and the right have both failed to permanently slow this flow of people. We've tried more border enforcement, guest worker programs. We tried pathways to citizenship, and border enforcement has merely sealed in these parents, so they view it less likely to circulate back home, so they're bringing their kids up more readily. Temporary workers, too many of them don't go home when they should after a certain period of time. And the last time we legalized people in 1986, they legalized and came out of the shadows, which was a good thing, but then they brought their family and friends illegally. So this has all caused the numbers to continue to grow. I think we need a completely different approach. I think Secretary of State Kerry needs to formulate a foreign policy that brings every tool we have at our disposal to trying to create more economic and democratic opportunities in 4 countries that are sending 74% of the folks who are coming here without permission. I think we need more foreign aid. You see governments in Europe who provide more foreign aid to Honduras than we do. We need trade policies that allow more goods in from these 4 countries than other countries. Trade policies that do the opposite of what NAFTA did. NAFTA allowed all this corn to surge into countries like Mexico, and corn farmers could not compete. The price of corn went down 70%, and so 1 million corn farmers migrated to the United States as a result. We need to help educate more girls. When you do that, they put off having kids until they're older. They have fewer children, and that can reduce the pressures to migrate. We can do things like helping to organize the $40 billion in remittances that go back to countries in Latin America that migrants send back, to organize some of that money to create jobs and factories and economic opportunities, as some hometown associations of migrants have already started doing in the United States. I think think there's a lot we can do to change the violence and the economic conditions in these 4 countries if we have the will to start doing that, rather than keep trying the 3 same approaches that we keep trying over and over again that have failed to help keep migrants where they really want to be, which is in their home countries with everything they know and love, and keep families together in countries where they'd rather be.
The effects of the coup in Honduras, the effect that that had, and the U.S. position on the coup that ousted Manuel Zelaya?
Well, I think the United States has culpability going back to the 1800s and the Monroe Doctrine in Latin America. I mean, in 1911, we had a fruit company that provided the arms for a coup in Honduras, and we have a long and sordid history in Central America of supporting elites and the military who want to concentrate power instead of redistributing wealth. And I think we do need to support more democratic governments who are willing to redistribute wealth. The United States was the first government to acknowledge after the 2009 coup in Honduras that new government that installed itself, and much of Latin America disagreed with that position. So I think both in terms of our policies in Latin America and our drug use in this country, 20 million people, a recent survey showed, needed drug treatment in this country and didn't get it in the past year. So I think we have a lot of culpability in terms of the conditions that we're seeing in places like Honduras and what's causing these children to flee for their lives.
What is the overall solution for comprehensive immigration reform? What would it look like to you, Sonia Nazario?
Well, I think certainly the first thing is to treat these children better when they're arriving into the United States. And as I said before, I mean, I'm on the board of an organization called Kids in Need of Defense. We recruit pro bono attorneys to represent these kids in court. So I think the government needs to be providing more of these attorneys so there's real due process in these courtrooms where you see kids just shaking with fear, clutching their teddy bears, wetting their pants in front of these judges because they're being asked to present these complex legal cases. And I think there should be a DREAM Act in terms of helping these kids who came here and their parents broke the law, but they were coming with their parents, to allow them to come out of the shadows. But again, I think more of the solutions long term, and we have to start looking at this long term, is helping to deal with these root causes in these countries and helping turn around the conditions in these countries.
Sonia Nazario, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, author of Enrique's Journey, the story of a boy's dangerous odyssey to reunite with his mother. She was speaking to us from Los Angeles. And Jose Luis Zelaya, who fled Honduras at the age of 13 in search of his mother, now a PhD student at Texas A&M, speaking to us from Houston. When we come back, Iraq. Stay with us.